Hello and welcome to this short talk giving you an introduction to grounded theory. In this talk I will introduce you to the origins and history of grounded theory, the key features of grounded theory and data collection for grounded theory. The associated workshop for this session will expand on the key features of grounded theory covered in this presentation and provide you with the opportunity to practice using the grounded theory techniques on data. Grounded theory has a long and complex history, leading to a number of different versions of the approach. This is too detailed for me to cover all in this short presentation, but I have made a Padlet timeline highlighting all of the key developments of the approach. You can click on the link to visit the Padlet and explore the history of grounded theory in more detail. Grounded theory originates from the work of two sociologists, Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss, who worked together in the 1960s. At this time, quantitative methods that were rooted in positivism predominated. Traditional research approaches that employed hypothetical deductive methods and built hypotheses from existing theory, testing these hypotheses through the collection of data and either confirming or rejecting these hypotheses. Glaser and Strauss were critical of this approach, arguing that rather than developing theory, these approaches simply tested existing theory and would either confirm it, or, if hypotheses were not supported, researchers would blame the tools and approaches used rather than critique the theory on which the hypotheses were based. Glaser and Strauss therefore wanted to find ways of developing new theories to emerge from the data. These theories would be specific to the context in which they had been developed and grounded in the data. This would result in new theory and move away from the reliance on pre-existing analytical constructs, categories, variables, and theory. To do this, Glaser and Strauss collaborated on a study looking at the process of people dying in hospitals. At the time the work was done, the healthcare professionals rarely discussed or acknowledged dying, and the research team wanted to look at how patients and staff knew when a patient was dying and how they handled that news. They looked at the qualitative data in an explicit manner to develop theoretical insights. Through the construction of their analysis, they developed specific systematic methodological strategies for the conduct of qualitative research. Glaser came from a positivist background of hypothetico-deductive research, while Strauss was more interested in the symbolic interactionist work and the idea that human beings act towards things on the basis of the meaning they ascribe to those things. And the meaning of such things is derived from or arises out of social interaction that we have with others and society. These meanings are handled in and modified through an interpretive process used by the person in dealing with the things he or she encounters. While the initial creation of the approach of this pairing worked well, over time the differences in perspectives between the two led to grounded theory to go on to a number of versions and revisions, most notably when they parted ways and each proposed different ways in which their approach should be practiced. Glaser stuck with the original approach, arguing that with objective and systematic application of the techniques, the theory would emerge from the data. Strauss began working with Juliet Corbin, developing a version of grounded theory more heavily influenced by pragmatism and social interactionism. They moved grounded theory towards verification, with the proposal of a rigorous coding framework to apply to the data, acknowledging that the role of the researcher was playing an interpretive role in the production of the final theory, rather than being an objective observer, finding that the theory emerges from the data. Later, Sharma, as a student of Glaser, went on to propose her own social constructionist version of grounded theory. This approach actively acknowledges the role of the researcher in the production of data and the development of theory, and introduces relativity and subjectivity into the epistemology. Grounded theory is therefore a unique approach that can be applied across the epistemological spectrum. Due to this flexibility, grounded theory has been adopted by lots of different researchers, and for more detail about the difference between Glaser and Strauss's particular approaches, I've created a comparison document about the two approaches that can be found on Blackboard. When learning about the approach, one of the things that can become confusing is that all of the approaches seem to use slightly different terminology. However, it's important to note that all approaches also adhere to several key features, and I'll go on to explain these in the remainder of this presentation. As a small add-on point, you may see the term constructivism and constructionism used in the literature by some authors, with the suggestion that they are perhaps the same thing. However, there are subtle differences between the two. Constructivism is linked to Piaget's work on child development and the internal construction of knowledge, and relates to individual biology and cognition. Knowledge and reality are viewed as constructed within the minds of individuals. In comparison, constructionism sees knowledge as constructed through social interchange. Knowledge and reality are therefore constructed through discourses, conversation, and language. You might get puzzled by all the different approaches and options and debates about which is the right way to do grounded theory. Even Glaser would stick at these debates and asserted that researchers should stop talking about and debating grounded theory and simply get on with doing it. When learning about grounded theory, one of the things that can become confusing is that all of the approaches seem to use different terminology, as I've mentioned. Try hard not to stress about doing it right, and instead note that they all adhere to these several key principles that I will go on to explain. Grounded theory's approaches advocate simultaneous data collection and analysis. Unlike many other approaches where the focus tends to be on the collection of data and then the analysis of that data, grounded theory uses the data collection as an opportunity to ask new questions and further develop the theory. Therefore, sampling is aimed towards further theory construction and development. For example, you might choose to seek out a particular type of participant to test out a developing theory with them, or further refine a developing analytical category through the data you collect from them. As with all qualitative approaches, grounded theory involves coding of data. Via a systematic approach, the researcher codes sections of data and then moves towards grouping and organising these within broader categories in order to develop the working theory. While engaging in this process, the researcher also engages in constant comparison. This is both within the particular participant's data and across the dataset as a whole. The aim is to develop theory and then go back to the data to check and refine the theory in a constant back and forth process of constant comparison. A unique theory or feature of grounded theory is the use of memoing in the analysis process. As the theory develops, memos are used to document the analysis process. This might record reasons for grouping particular codes, explanations for creation of category titles, thoughts and ideas about what needs to be asked in future interviews and with whom, and questions for further consideration in later stages of the analysis. This is like a reflexive diary. They specifically linked to the particular stages and development in the analysis process. Finally, grounded theory works towards achieving something called theoretical saturation. This is the point at which the collection and analysis of further data would not add anything to the developing theory. This means that the categories are fully developed and represent a clear theory about the topic of interest. Like other qualitative approaches, you have a range of options available for collecting data. This includes traditional interviews and focus groups, texts such as books, magazines or news articles, or online data like blogs, synchronous or asynchronous interviews and discussion forums. Grounded theory is rooted in ethnography, and therefore it's also suited to a combination of data collection approaches, though you would need to keep clear records and memos detailing your decision processes regarding the data you collect. With grounded theory, you are constantly building ideas and concepts and testing them in order to create your theory. This is analytic induction. You might interview several swans, for example, and draw the conclusion that all swans are white. But then you find a deviant case. The baby swan is grey, so you modify your concept and develop your theory. All adult swans are white. You continue your sampling and retest your theory, and all is going well. But then, another deviant case. The black adult swan shows you that the theory is not yet complete. You need to expand it so your theory can incorporate this new information and therefore say something about adult swans in general. In summary, I've covered three key areas in this talk. I've introduced you to the origins and history of grounded theory, beginning with the work of Glaser and Strauss and progressing to a range of versions of grounded theory, spanning a range of epistemological positions and illustrating the flexibility of this approach. I've also overviewed the key features of grounded theory used in all versions of the approach, including simultaneous data collection and analysis, the aim for theory construction, the use of codes and categories, constant comparison, memo writing, and theoretical saturation. Finally, I've explained some of the key considerations relating to data collection for the grounded theory approach and its use for theory development. The next steps in developing your understanding of grounded theory could include reviewing the Padlet to explore the full history of the approach. Attending the associated workshop for this session will help you learn about how to put the grounded theory techniques into practice. I'd advise you do some wider reading around grounded theory, and you'll find some reading suggestions available to you on Blackboard. You should also think to look at some published examples of research using this approach. A good place to start would be the Marks, Hughes and Whitehead paper on chronic fatigue syndrome that I've provided a link to here.